Today I am here to talk about mediation. First, I wanted to tell my audience what is mediation. Mediation is an intervention between conflicting parties to promote reconciliation and a settlement or compromise. That's what mediation is. Mediation at Sean Kishore looks like this. I am the partner that deals with mediation. I've been doing this for about 30 years now, and I am trained in mediation. The reason why mediation is something I can assist you with is because I have dealt with a lot of complex custody mediation, which involves special needs children, and also I do a lot of mediation where there's business divorce. Business divorce is a situation where parties have a business and they're going through a divorce and they want to separate that business, and it is considered marital property. The reason I can assist you in that process is because I have a strong business background in finance and economics, and I also have an MBA, and I can analyze the skill, all the number crunching that's involved, come up with different proposals for you as a client on different ideas of how we could structure the dissolution of the business and get the parties their marital share, or different ideas on how the business can be divided up between the spouses. Now, mediation, the goals of mediation are that we identify any issues or disputes that can be solved during a mediation session. That's one of our goals, okay? The other goals that we have is we try to open up the pathway for communication between the spouses to ensure a productive solutions and issues that can be resolved during the mediation. And communication is very, very important during the mediation process. The other thing that we try to do is we try to present practical solutions, like I was saying a few minutes ago, based on the specific mediator's experience and expertise. You can come up with solutions that will be effective and also practical solutions to resolve and issues that you have to deal with in a divorce situation. The other thing that we try to do in mediation, which is another goal, is to instill a spirit of cooperation that will lead the way to get an agreement created and for the mediator. So the point is to bring the parties together, bring an environment for them where they can talk in a safe environment and come up with solutions with the assistance of a mediator and the background of the mediator that will apply the law and help you to come up with solutions. Now, those are what we do as the goals. The things that we need to do is to tell you today why you would want to choose mediation over litigation. The first and practical reason is the expense. Litigation is, I would say, to 10 to 20 times as more expensive than mediation is in any type of case that I've handled over the last 30 years. The other thing is that the result of mediation can be the result or the outcome and the solution that you figured out can be a solution that you and your spouse have come up with, and it's not a solution that the court has given you. Most of the court resolutions are things that normally parties have to stick by the court order, and they don't take into account your day-to-day life, the different finances you have, different expenses that you and your wife or husband can understand in negotiating. So we come up with plans that you both can live with and that are more specific to you. And when you go to litigation, you cannot do that. The other thing that mediation does is it helps the family relationship. This is probably one of the best reasons you should do mediation, in my opinion, especially when you have children. The relationship between you and your spouse is a lot better when you come to mediation, you work together, and you feel a little better about each other, instead of going through a litigated case where you're fighting, you're talking bad about each other, you have witnesses that are attacking each of the parties, and you walk away with a lot of animosity. So mediation tries to bring parties together and improve the relationship after the dissolution of the marriage. Now, the last thing that I would say is another big factor why you would want to choose mediation is that mediation is less likely to lead people to come back and request a modification in the future. Now, if you have a judge giving you a court order and you didn't have any say in the outcome per se, the chances of either party coming back and asking for a modification for some reason, which there is a standard of review for that, but the likelihood of that happening is less when you have a mediated settlement. The other reason is the terms and agreements in mediation settlements are fashioned in a way that enable the parties and to not to have a standard settlement, which is what I've been trying to explain to you earlier. So when you look at these specific benefits to mediation, I would tell you, you strongly encourage each and every client of mine that comes into my office to do mediation. The only time that I don't encourage it is if there is a history of domestic violence and the parties are not on the same level for some reason, and normally that is because of domestic violence or abuse, or if the one party has a criminal record and his behavior or actions would be in some way negative in starting that mediation process, I would tell the client not to go through the mediation process. And the only other time I would tell a client not to go through mediation is if he or she does not have a substantial amount of the information, like financial information, where he or she would feel at the same level of knowledge going into the mediation, and he or she feels that they would not be able to do that because the other party is not honest and straightforward, and they honestly don't believe them. So in that situation, I would tell my client not to go and waste their time through mediation, because there's a trust issue and a strong trust issue. Now, what I'd like to do lastly is discuss with you how the mediation process looks like. First of all, what happens is the parties call me, and what we do is we come up with a time and a place and location for the mediation. Now, since COVID, we have been doing a lot of Zoom mediations, and we can continue to do that. But I always encourage the parties, if their health and they're able to, and the distance to my office is something that is justifiable to them, and they can do it, I always tell my clients to come in and meet me, because I think that it is a lot more productive instead of on a Zoom call. The other thing is that we usually set that schedule up, if it's Zoom or if it's in person. We then sit down and we introduce ourselves, and we set ground rules in the mediation. And then what happens is I give a chance to both parties to provide their background of the relationship, what they're looking for, what are the issues, and any other information that they think is relevant that I need to know. Both parties, allow them to speak to me. Then what I do is go into further detail, asking specific questions about the parties' background, their occupational level, their income level, their asset levels, any information like that that I think would be useful for me to help them mediate a solution. Then what we do is I then try to caucus with both parties separately, and then we caucus back together with the parties, and then after meeting with them individually and then caucusing together, we then come up with solutions that I come up with, that the parties tell me that they might want, and we give them practical solutions on how to go forward. At this point, what happens is we then draft up an agreement. I will draft up an agreement and then present it to both parties. Now, what I always encourage my clients to do is to hire independent counsel to review the agreement. And I do encourage, and I always tell my clients to do that, but at certain points, the parties do not want to incur the fee and they don't feel like they need to do it. As long as they voluntarily are doing it and they feel very comfortable and understand all the terms, and they waive their right to seek their own counsel, then we proceed, have the parties sign the agreement. Now, one other thing that people always ask is, who pays for the mediation? Generally speaking, mediation fees are resolved between the parties before they come, because I tell them my fees prior to them coming in. They obviously come to an agreement on who's going to pay. A lot of parties split the fees. Some parties say that one party will pay it and is willing to pay it. So those terms, generally speaking, are decided between the parties before they come to mediation. These several things that I brought up in mediation and the mediation process is just to give you the general feel of what mediation is, how we work, how I can benefit you in choosing me as a mediator. So if you have any additional questions or concerns, please do contact my office, and we can schedule a mediation. We can answer any other further questions I didn't answer today for you, and I look forward to hearing from you. And you also can go to my mediation page on our website, which is www.maryland-lawoffice.com. Thank you.